of Europe's finest circuits. Well, it's hello from myself, Ben Evans. You join us on a glorious late spring afternoon at the Estoril circuit. The sun is in the sky, it's a little bit breezy, but it is perfect conditions to go motor racing. And what a race we have in prospect over the next 70 minutes. A 22-car grid for the International GT Open season opener, and an incredibly close qualifying session earlier on today, which saw the top 12 cars covered by just 1.8 seconds ahead of today's 70-minute race. Lining up in pole position is Rob Bell at the wheel of the Balfe Motorsport McLaren that he shares with Sean Balfe, and alongside Bell on the front row of the grid is going to be Albert Costa in the Emil Frey Lexus Racing entry that he shares with Philip Fromweiler. There is the number one car, because driving it this year is the reigning champion, Thomas Biaggi, but he switches squads to the Imperiale team and is joined this season by Giovanni Venturini, and it is Venturini who is currently at the wheel of the Lamborghini Huracan. She's going to start from 5th position. Ahead of him on the second row of the grid, it's Com Ledegaard in the first of the Garage 59 McLarens, and then Marco Ciocci in the AF Course Ferrari. So the field forming up. It's a 70-minute race, of course. Mandatory pit stops are to come midway through proceedings between 28 and 42 minutes. And lots of new teams, lots of change in the driver lineups this year. And it's a very different looking championship to the one that we saw last season. Indeed, it really is only the Garage 59 McLaren pairings of Com Ledegaard and Alex West, and then Duncan Tapia and Michael Benham, which remain unchanged. Here is Rob Bell then in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. McLaren Works driver Bell partnering Sean Balfe for the International GT Open campaign this year. And Bell in fine form in qualifying early on, taking pole position by almost half a second over Albert Costa. So Albert Costa, then the 2012 Megane Trophy champion, 2009 for the Renault Euro Cup champion Com Ledegaard in the Garage 59 McLaren he shares with Alex West, and the French driver Ledegaard was trading pole positions with Albert Costa and Rob Bell throughout qualifying. Marco Ciocci then, one of the quickest pedallers of Ferrari that you can find in the AF Course car that he shares with Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. And Ciocci certainly will challenge early on. Then it's on to the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan of Giovanni Venturini. Venturini finished 10th in last year's Italian GT Championship. 6th on the grid is Alain Cordier in the DriveX Mercedes, a shifter car for the DriveX team this year, and very impressive qualifying for the 35-year-old Brazilian. It's been the start of stock car racing in Brazil. For British fans, Tom Onslow Cole needs little to no introduction in the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes, former star of the British GT Championship, before making the step into international GT racing. And he shares the 4th row of the grid with Mario Farnbacher in the second of the Lexus, or Lexi, the Farnbacher Racing entry. First of 3 Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs, and it's Fran Rueda who lines up in 9th place. Rueda in the car that he shares with the Swedish driver Victor Bouveng. And then 10th on the grid, it is the former F1 racer, former F3000 champion Vitantonio Liuzzi in the Triple F Racing Lamborghini alongside Hiroshi Hamaguchi. Moving down the grid, Vito Postiglione in the second of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghinis lines up in 11th place. Postiglione putting in his best lap very late on in qualifying earlier on. Then looking further down the grid, that is Marcio Basso, who lines up in 20th place. And he will line up third in the GT Am class as well, in the second of the Sport and U Mercedes. Here's how they line up in full then, and quite the grid for the season opener. So the front row, Rob Bell and Albert Costa. Then on to row 2, Com Ledegaard and Marco Ciocci. It's going to be quite the charge to turn 1. Giovanni Venturini and Alam Kodir on the third row of the grid, ahead of Tom Onslow Cole and Mario Farnbacher in 7th and 8th place. Then Fran Rueda and Vitantonio Liuzzi on row 5. And then row 6, Vito Postiglione and Miguel Ramos, the 2015 champion. Row 7 of the grid, Kang Ling and Lorenzo Beirao de Viega, but watch for the car of Beirao de Viega because Antonio Felix Costa takes that over later on. Then it's Jordan Witt and Antonio Coimbra on row 8. Row 9, Michael Benham and Mauro Calamia. Again, those are two cars that might well feature as the race unfolds, from Philippe Barrieroth and Marcio Basso. And then the back row of the grid, Alexander Gracina and Ivor Dunbar. So that is how the field forms up. They're about to head off on to their formation lap. So the final opportunity for the drivers to get a little bit of heat into the control compound Michelin tire that they all run on. Chance as well to see how the track conditions have changed since qualifying earlier on today. Picking their way around the 13 turns of this Estoril circuit. And certainly last year, the visit of the International GT Open gave us two absolutely fantastic races. Let's see if it's the case again this afternoon. Certainly the multicoloured and varied field suggests some real entertainment. Watch for Vitantonio Liuzzi from 10th on the grid. Liuzzi, who in qualifying earlier on had both of his flying laps ruined by traffic. Also watch for the progress of Miguel Ramos from 12th, because he and Mikael Mack Jensen were quickest in free practice yesterday. And then we've got the likes of Antonio Felix da Costa, Duncan Tappy, who will be taking over for the second half of the race as well. So the order as they head into the pit window is quite unlikely to be the order by the checkered flag. The pit window opens when there will be 42 minutes left on the race clock. It'll be open for some 14 minutes or so, so an element of strategy does start to come into play as well. Well, great to have the two Lexus entries for the season. Albert Costa immediately qualifying second on the grid, and there is the Triple F Racing Lamborghini Huracan of Vitantonio Liuzzi. Liuzzi, a fair amount of work to do, but he's certainly got the experience and pedigree to be able to scythe his way through the field. There's also a glimpse of the Jordan Racing Bentley of Jordan Witt and Michael Meadows, as now the field bunching up side by side, getting ready for the start of the opening race of the 2017 International GT Open season. The red McLaren of Rob Bell in pole position, the white and black Lexus of Albert Costa alongside him. Row 2 of the grid, we've got the black and orange McLaren of Com Ledegaard, the scarlet, white and green Ferrari of Marco Ciocci. This is going to be very, very good indeed as they wait for the lights on the gantry to change. Then we'll be racing for the first time in 2017. As the pack bunches up behind Rob Bell, wait for the lights to change. It's a long hold, and they go now, and away we go. The field fans out as they sprint towards turn 1. Bell covers the inside line. He's got Com Ledegaard looking to try and follow through as well, and it's Albert Costa who might lose out here as they swing through the first turn. The Lexus, though, takes the wide track through. The front half of the field is safely through. What about the second half as Ledegaard looks to try and elbow aside Albert Costa? Costa, I suspect, having absolutely none of it, but Ledegaard's got a little bit of track position. He sneaks past Tom Onslow Cole, running wide through turn 2. He loses out to Fran Rueda and Vitantonio Liuzzi as already Rob Bell building a buffer. We've got a problem behind. Waved yellow flags. I think that's possibly Ivor Dunbar taking a trip through the gravel trap. We'll find out in due course as the front of the field all cleanly on their way as they sprint down the back straight on towards the hairpin at turn 6. The road just falls away on entry, so it can be a little bit tricky to navigate. Got one car that slithers out very, very wide. I think that was possibly one of the Mercedes, as looking to dart to the inside. That is Giovanni Venturini, who is able to sneak past Mario Farnbacher with their Vitantonio Liuzzi and Tom Onslow Cole in close pursuit. Second of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghinis, Vito Postiglione, also not too far adrift, and nor is Mauro Calamira, who's made a good start to the race. As Michael Benham and Jordan Witt go wheel to wheel as they climb out of the chicane and fight on their way through the S's and then around the Parabolica, through to complete the first lap of the International GT Open season. And it's Rob Bell who leads, and leads comfortably as Calamia runs out very wide. Ledegar in second, Costa third. Oh, in fact, Com Ledegar has closed right up to Rob Bell. In fourth place is Alan Codir, fifth Marco Ciocci, sixth Venturini, seventh Mario Farnbacher, eighth Vitantonio Liuzzi, ninth Onslow Cole. Fran Rueda completes the top 10. It's Antonio Coimbra, who's the one driver who has been in the wars in the first lap and is yet to come through in the sporting new Mercedes. Florenco Beirao de Viega, the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs, looking to try and sneak to the inside of Mauro Calamia. They have got Miguel Ramos and Kang Ling bunched up just behind them. That's Andres Franquina in 20th place. It's the leading duo of McLarens trying to break away from Albert Costa. Costa in turn has got a little bit of a buffer over Alan Kadir. Then it's Marco Ciocci and Giovanni Venturini. Here is the... we see the wave yellow flags, and it's Philippe Barrieroth who was running a little bit wide. Didn't quite catch the rest of the incident. It's Rob Bell and Com Ledegar flying formation in the McLarens at the front of the pack. Then we've got Albert Costa and Alan Codir next along. Now, don't forget, of course, that this, being the first race of the year, means that we don't have the pit handicap penalties that will start to come into play later on in the season. And so a good chance to see how we're going with pace in the early stages of the year. Out of final turn in towards turn 1, and Rob Bell looking to pressurise Com Ledegar as they swing into the first corner. Costa in third. Some great battling but lower down the order. It's Jordan Witt looking to make the move on Kang Ling. They've got Michael Benham queuing up just behind them. That's the fight for 15th, 16th and 17th places. The race leading McLarens of Bell and Ledegar separated by just a quarter of a second. Then it's 2 seconds back to Albert Costa, with Alan Kadir in fourth. Marco Ciocci in fifth, just ahead of Giovanni Venturini. And then Mario Farnbacher from Vitantonio Liuzzi. So this gaggle of cars, they're all queuing up behind Kadir, up to and including Tom Onslow Cole in ninth place. There is the SPS automotive performance car of Onslow Cole. We'll be handing over to Valentin Pierreberg later on in the race. He's just doing battle with Vitantonio Liuzzi, the absolutely immaculately liveried Triple F Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Almost 5 minutes in, just coming towards the end of the third lap of the race. Great fight beginning to form for fourth place. It's really only of the front runners, Albert Costa, is in anything like clear air in that third position as the race leader McLaren's running as one. Now here are some adventures a little bit lower down the field. It's a big lock-up from Fran Rueda. Means that he loses out to Vito Postiglione in the battle for 10th and 11th. Possibly also puts Rueda into the clutches as well. Florenco Beirao de Viega. So the race leaders head into turn 3. Then it's Costa. Now Alan Cordier, he's got Marco Ciocci with him. Ciocci just beginning to put a little bit of a gap over Giovanni Venturini. Venturini likewise under no immediate pressure from Mario Farnbacher, who has got Vitantonio Liuzzi snapping right at his heels. Then we've got This brace of Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs then. Mauro Calamir from Miguel Ramos and Kang Ling. Now Ramos, for the first time since 2011, looking to campaign a full season in the International GT Open at the wheel of a Ferrari. This time around it's a Ferrari 488. I was talking to Miguel earlier, he was saying the car is really good through the slower and medium speed corners, so he'll be hoping to try and push his way up past Calamir before too long. Of course, we've seen time and time again the Aston Martin, absolutely fantastic torque available to it. As Calamir just defends as they head into the uphill chicane. It means he's offline, it means his corner speed's extremely slow, and as a result everybody starts to bunch up behind. The pace of the McLarens at the front of the field already beginning to open up something like a 15-second or so advantage over this gaggle of cars, and that's coming just within the first 4 laps of the race. So certainly for Ramos, who's got Mikael Mack Jensen to hand over to, he'll want to try and carve his way through this group if he possibly can. Rob Bell, Com Ledegaard, first and second place. Ledegaard, well, not applying the pressure to Rob Bell, mainly because Bell has just set the fastest lap of the race. 1:38.8, so he gains another couple of tenths of a second over Com Ledegaard. It'll be quite interesting as well in the second half of the race, any battle between Alex West and Sean Balfe when they take over at the wheel of those cars. There's Albert Costa in third. Fourth place, Alan Kadir. There is Marco Ciocci, who is being a little bit less aggressive maybe in these early stages than we've seen in the past from Ciocci. And then this great scrap, Mario Farnbacher, just ahead of Vitantonio Liuzzi. And Liuzzi again looking to wind up the pressure on Farnbacher in the Lexus as Tom Onslow Cole running a little bit wide in the Mercedes. Alan Kadir in another of the Mercedes, this time Drivex Mercedes, now started to come under some pressure from Marco Ciocci. Ciocci can see that the leaders are now over 6.5 seconds up the road. As Liuzzi's got a run here on Mario Farnbacher. If we just hold the shot, we'll see. Farnbacher has to defend from Liuzzi. It looked for a moment as if the Lamborghini been able to draw alongside the Lexus. Proved not to be the case as they head around the Parabolica. This is to complete the 5th lap of the race. Down the start and finish straight, and the Lexus has certainly got some straight line grunt. So does the Lamborghini. And again, the balance of performance working out very nicely. Mercedes, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Lexus, all doing battle. Alan Kadir, newcomer to the championship this year, the Brazilian who's raced predominantly in Brazilian stock car series racing, establishing himself as one of the series front runners. He's got a very high calibre of car behind him, but as he is doing battle with Ciocci, it does mean they're now 3, almost 4 seconds adrift of Albert Costa in third, and then Com Ledegaard a further 3 seconds up the road ahead of Albert Costa. So this battle now 7.5 seconds adrift of the race leaders. We're not quite 10 minutes into the race. We've still got 18 minutes until the pit window opens. So those that want to make progress, they're going to have to do it sooner rather than later. So again, Ciocci closes right up onto the tail of Alam Kadir. But the Mercedes finds itself in all the right places at all the right times. Ciocci thought about a little look to the inside into the chicane, but because these cars have got ABS braking available to them, braking distances are very, very short. It means you need to be a little bit closer than Ciocci was to really be able to dart past. Likewise, Vitantonio Liuzzi getting plenty of opportunity to inspect the rear spoiler of Mario Farnbacher's Lexus, but he's not, as yet, been able to craft an opportunity to try and fight his way through. Down the start and finish straight, Kadir just defends. He moves across towards the middle of the road. Ciocci not able to find a way past. Likewise, the Lexus just buys itself a car length or two over Vitantonio Liuzzi in a straight line. So there's nothing the Italian can do. Tom Onslow Cole then holding position in 9th. Likewise, but that group of cars, they are easing away from Vito Postiglione in 10th. Lorenzo Beirao de Viega is now to 11th, with 12th place Miguel Ramos, 13th Fran Rueda, front of the field, it's still Rob Bell who leads the way from Com Ledegaard. Then Albert Costa in third. We're still watching the fight for fourth. Certainly the best one at the sharp end of the field at the moment, as Chiocci continues to ask all the questions of Alam Kadir at the wheel of the Mercedes. Likewise, Liuzzi trying to fluster a mistake out of Mario Farnbacher. Farnbacher, who finished first in his class at the Nürburgring 24 Hours last year. I'm sure will be able to absorb the pressure. Front splitters grind against the track under heavy braking into the chicane, and Chiocci getting ever closer to Kadir. Kadir, he's doing exactly what he needs to do in the Drive-X car. He's just sticking to the racing line in the Mercedes. He's making Chiocci, as a result, do all the hard work at the wheel of the Ferrari. And at the moment, Marco Chiocci hasn't yet been able to force the mistake from Kadir, or indeed find a way past. And the Mercedes rumbles down the fast start and finish straight, builds up a little bit of a buffer over Marco Chiocci once more. It means the Ferrari's nowhere near close enough to challenge on the brakes into the opening turn. They're into the 8th lap of the race. Just 12 minutes gone. Giovanni Venturini, there he is. Car that he partners with last year's champion, two-time FIA GT1 champion Thomas Biaggi, lurking with intent in 6th place in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini, team that we first saw in the championship, the Monza round last year, and immediately established as a front runner. Meanwhile, Liuzzi has dropped back a little bit from Mario Farnbacher, and now Tom Onslow Cole coming under pressure from Vito Postiglione. So Postiglione picks up the pace in the fight for 9th and 10th place with Tom Onslow Cole. They've got a long gap, 6 seconds back to Lorenco Bear out of Jäger behind. And 11th. And Lorenco Bear out of Jäger, by the way, is 22.5 seconds off the lead of the race currently. And I give you that gap because Antonio Felix da Costa will be taking over that car mid-race. And da Costa, one of the world's top drivers, pretty much anything he's ever turned his hand to, his progress is going to be well worth watching. Meanwhile, the race leaders Rob Bell and Com Ledegaard come across the line. Now this is why Tom Onslow Cole lost ground, and that's not the first time that Onslow Cole has got a little bit too close to comfort, the gravel. Meanwhile, Marco Chiocci very generously providing some assistance to Alam Kadir to try and Mercedes go that little bit quicker. So the two McLarens flying in formation. Different teams, of course, Garage 59 and Balve Motorsport, albeit very friendly competition between them as well. And there is Alexander West, who takes over from Com Ledegaard mid-race. West, who drove absolutely immaculately to claim victory alongside Ledegaard at Monza last season. Will it be a chance for the pair of them to start the season with victory? Likewise, the Balve Motorsport team, they had one win last season, which came here at Estoril, but that was when the team were running the Ferrari 458. They switched to the McLaren mid-season, took a couple of races to really get the best out of it. Haven't done a huge amount of testing over the winter, but they've got a very strong base setup that they established through the races last year. And as you can see, it's working out really well for Rob Bell at the moment. He and Ledegaard now 4.5 seconds up the road from Albert Costa in third. Costa in turn, 5 seconds over Alam Kadir. Now here is Mike Benham. Elbows aside, Kangling moves up into 16th place. Of course, Mike Benham and Duncan Tappy victorious in the other of the races at Estoril last year. As Chiocci again looks to try and line up the move on Kadir as they come down the start and finish straight. This is the fight for 4th and 5th place, and for Marco Chiocci, it's now 11.1 seconds off the lead of the race. Really needs to try and elevate himself up past this Mercedes if he possibly can. They come out of the first corner and then down towards turn 2. The Ferrari and the Mercedes doing battle. Chiocci, you can just see he's able to take so much tighter lines through some of the slower corners. but at the same time, he just can't translate that into an advantage that is allowing him to get past the Mercedes. So the pair of them head down the back stretch on towards the heavy braking zone at turn 6. And again, Ciocci looks to try and chase down the Mercedes. He can't quite find a way through. Out of turn 6 to come down to turn 7. Again, Alain Coder just moves across a little bit later, makes sure to cover the line. This time Ciocci unable to offer some assistance, but the Italian, oh, you can see the splitters bumping off the track surface, but at the same time he's just not able to draw alongside Coder under braking. Now the pace being run by Alain Coder last time around was a 1 minute 40.6, and that compares to 1 minute 39.8 from Rob Bell. So that is why the gap from first to fourth continues to grow. Coming to the end of the 10th lap of the race, Coder and Ciocci, as they cross the start and finish line now, 11.6 seconds their deficit to race leader Rob Bell. The gap between the pair of them, slightly irrelevant. It continues to seesaw, and Ciocci doing a great job of being able to run in that turbulent air behind Coder. They've re-dropped Giovanni Venturini in 6th. 7th place it continues to be Mario Farnbacher. 8th then Vittorio Liuzzi. 9th to Monslow Cole. 10th Vito Postiglione. Oh, that was an opportunity there almost for Ciocci as he tried to draw alongside the Mercedes. Now Alain Coder is just starting to be a little bit less crisp in some of the racing lines that he's taking. Suggests that possibly the Mercedes is beginning to feel the punishment. Certainly the talk from the Ferrari and McLaren drivers earlier on was that they weren't too concerned about overworking the Michelin tyres, but there was an expectation that some of the other marques might be suffering a little bit as the race wears on. You can see now Coder really a little bit of understeer starting to bite. He wasn't quite able to turn in as crisply as he wanted on that occasion, but still Ciocci can't use it as a slingshot to dart past Coder as they climb out of the chicane into turn 12 now, and then on towards the Parabolica. It's two cars running wheel to wheel as they have done really for the past 15 minutes or so. We're almost 20 minutes into the race. 9 minutes until the pit window opens. The race leaders already long gone. This is the fight for fourth. Now 12 seconds adrift of the lead of the race. Into the opening corner of the 12th lap. And Ciocci just dropping back a little bit, possibly needs to cool the car down. Did this a few moments ago and then was very quickly back onto terms with Alain Coder. In terms of the GTM class, by the way, that's currently led by Marcio Basso from Philippe Barrieroth and then Alexander Fratrina, as we're watching the battle between Lourenco Beirao de Vieira in 11th, Miguel Ramos in 12th, and then Fran Rueda and Jordan Witt in 13th and 14th. For Miguel Ramos, he'll want to try and clear the BMW, and particularly towards the end of this stint he might just fancy his chances. The bigger, bulkier BMW makes more use of its Michelin tyre, starts to feel the pressure just a little bit. Jordan Witt in the Jordan Racing Bentley showing strongly on his debut in the International GT Open. And he's still got Mauro Calamia and Michael Benham tucked up just behind him. And we're still in the territory talking about certainly potential podium finishes all the way down to 16th, 17th place. Kang Lim, because some very quick drives to take over in these cars for the second phase of the races. Lourenco Beirao de Vieira comes under pressure now from Miguel Ramos in the Ferrari. Ramos looks to draw alongside the BMW as they arrive into the chicane before climbing sharply uphill. Meanwhile, here is Rob Bell, and as Ledegar got a problem, he suddenly dropped a long way back from Bell, 4.3 seconds back, and that last lap from Ledegar was a 1 minute 43.8. So he lost almost 4 seconds somewhere on the 12th lap of the race, Cobb Ledegar. Just looking to see, doesn't look as if there's a puncture or anything for Ledegar. Though he was very, very unlucky with punctures last year. all smiles in the Emil Frey Racing pit, because now Albert Costa released to have a crack at Ledegar. This is good news for Rob Bell and Sean Balfe. It gives them a little bit of breathing space as we head towards the pit window. So when there are 42 minutes left on the race clock, on the top left of your screen, that means the pit window is open. It will then be open for 14 minutes until there are 28 minutes left on the clock. So for the likes of Rob Bell, Com Ledegar, possibly Albert Costa, it means they can stay out for another 20 minutes if they want to. Let's imagine that that will probably be the case, as again Ramos looks to try and line up the move on Lourenço Beirão de Viega. De Viega, who's raced a lot in GT racing in the past, but in the past couple of seasons was to be seen in the Seat Leon Euro Cup. Now back into the big, powerful GT car, coming under pressure from Miguel Ramos. Likewise, Jordan Witt flashing his headlights at Fran Rueda. Harold Calamere, Michael Benham, Kang Ling, all parts of this scrap. It's for 11th position. Imagine, the second the pit window opens, Lourenço Beirão de Viega will be in to hand over to Antonio Felix da Costa. Arguably the same for Mike Benham to release Duncan Tappy, and possibly as well Miguel Ramos to hand over to Mikkel Mack Jensen as well. So Miguel Ramos runs right up behind the BMW. Of course, Ramos, Teo Martin Motorsport BMW driver last season. He knows exactly where the BMW is going to be strong and exactly where he might have a little bit of an opening for the Ferrari. But it's not the case into turn one. Likewise, the Bentley of Jordan Witt can't do an awful lot about Fran Rueda. Benham tries to chase Mauro Calamere as well. Climbing up out of turn three into turn four. Calamere, there he is in the Solaris Aston Martin, the team who've done an absolutely fantastic job to get the car ready for this weekend after it was very badly damaged in pre-season testing at Paul Ricard. Now we return to the fight for 7th and 8th place between Mario Farnbacher and Vitantonio Liuzzi. Farnbacher in the Lexus, Liuzzi in the Triple F Racing Lamborghini, continuing to snap at his heels once more. This has been something of the story of the race, really, or indeed the day for Vitantonio Liuzzi. He got caught in traffic in qualifying, he's got caught in traffic a little bit in the race, and we're yet really to see the true pace of the Italian driver. As he comes out of the Parabolica, shoots through, starts his 15th lap of the race. Liuzzi, 15 seconds drift of the race leader. Meanwhile, Ramos continues to be sandwiched by the two Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. And the Spirita Race Ferrari, sporting a little bit of front nose damage, which suggests that possibly some assistance has been given to Lourenço Beirão de Viega somewhere around the track. And they're all bottled up behind the Portuguese. Lourenço Beirão de Viega is doing a great job at the moment of withstanding this pressure, the 37-year-old. Because it's not easy to have this many cars filling your mirrors. And that is this cue to Kang Ling in about 17th place. And then a big gap back to Marcio Basso, who leads the GTM class from Philippe Barrieroth. As again, Mauro Calamere looks to try and lighten the move on Jordan Witt in the Bentley. There you see the black and orange Aston Martin just moves slightly out of the trail of the Bentley. Meanwhile, here is Vitantonio Liuzzi, who has managed to overhaul Mario Farnbacher, and Farnbacher might lose out as well to Tom Onslow Cole. The Lexus has to defend into turn 12. Mercedes not quite positioned as Onslow Cole, I'm sure, would have liked. But Mario Farnbacher possibly struggling for grip as Onslow Cole takes a much more swooping route through the Parabolica. Is that going to allow the Mercedes to carry a little bit more in the way of corner exit speed and challenge? As they run down the start and finish straight, it releases Vitantonio Liuzzi. If you're following live timing, by the way, his transponder has possibly decided to call it an afternoon. Here's another look at the move. Liuzzi sees half a gap. squeezes Farnbacher out wide. Beautifully judged move from the Italian. Also more adventures further back, and that is Antonio Coimbra scything his way up through the field. That was a pass for third in the GTM class. So suddenly it's all coming alive, because look at the pace of it. Or rather, that isn't Liuzzi, it is Ivor Dunbar going a lap down to Giovanni Venturini. So the FF course Ferrari of Ivor Dunbar, and Ivor has been driving Ferraris in the track environment for many, many years, but has only recently really dedicated his energies to going racing, learning as he goes. This is just his second time racing here at Estoril. He also had an outing towards the tail end of 2016. The FF course team, one of the go-to squads in the UK if you want to race a Ferrari competitively, as still Renko Berra de Viega holds off Miguel Ramos in this battle for 11th place. We're just a minute away from the pit window opening. Rob Bell leads, Ledegar is second, Costa is third, fourth Alam Coder, still from Marco Ciocci fifth, Giovanni Venturini sixth, Antonio Liuzzi seventh, from Mario Farnbacher, then Tom Onslow Cole and Vito Postiglione in 10th. And we currently track the battle for 11th, which seems to comprise much of the rest of the field. And it's going to be at the end of the next lap where we might start to see this battle and possibly some of the others being broken up as various teams decide to go for their pit stops. Now here's a moment for Philippe Barrieroth, and it opens the door to Antonio Coimbra to make a bold move through turn 5. So Coimbra goes up to second place now in the GTM class as Mike Benham challenges Mauro Calamia. This is a pass for 16th, or is it? Because Calamia, the ex-FIA Formula 2 Championship racer, former star of the Maserati Trofeo, fights back, keeps Benham at bay. It throws Mike Benham into the clutches of Kang Ling, who we last saw in the Euroformula Open in one of the DAV cars. And the Chinese driver, partnering Eduardo Liberati this season, will possibly be handing over fairly quickly to the reigning GT Asia champion, because the pit window is now open for the next 14 minutes. This is where the element of strategy starts to come into play, and this is where the race could start to possibly be turned on its head. And already we're seeing some changes. Martin Conrad jumps into the MS Racing Mercedes, and all these second drivers in the race, by the way, this will be their first on-track action of the day. They've had testing yesterday, but we only had one qualifying session this morning, and that was for the drivers starting today's race. So they're getting into the car cold, having to learn their way. Rob Bell and Com Ledegar, the race leaders, we would anticipate will stay out fairly deep into this pit cycle. As the season unfolds, we will have pit handicaps starting to come into play, and they are awarded to the top finishers in each class, accumulating as the season goes on, which just helps to keep the balance of performance. Oh, and after all that progress from Antonio Coimbra, he's possibly slowing us into the pits now, comes Kang Ling. That's to hand over in the Raton Racing Lamborghini to Eduardo Liberati. We also saw ducking into the pits Miguel Ramos to hand over to Michael Mack Jensen. Antonio Felix da Costa takes over from the Renko Berra de Viega. Francesco Cini in for Mauro Calamia, and Duncan Tappy, the pit stop right in front of us as well, will take over from Mike Benham. So everything now starts to get thrown into flux a little bit as well. Nono Figueiredo takes over from Marco Basso, Marcio Basso in Sport and U Mercedes. All the while Rob Bell continues on his way, but this is the point of the race really where these drivers at the front of the field are possibly racing cars that they can't see, because essentially they're trying to build as big a buffer as possible for the driver who will be taking over a little bit later on. In the case of Rob Bell, he will hand over to Sean Balfe, Com Ledegar to Alex West, and Albert Costa will hand over to Philip Frommenreiter. Bell accelerates along the back straight. McLaren 650S. Headlights ablaze, and Rob Bell hasn't put a single wheel wrong all race. And after that moment for Ledegaard, we never quite got to the bottom of what happened. Ledegaard, last couple of laps, been a little bit quicker than Rob Bell, but Bell's lead over Ledegaard 2.7 seconds. But as they lap as consistently as they do, Albert Costa in the Lexus has now dropped about a second off the pace of the race leaders. Fourth place, Alain Coder continues in fourth, Marco Ciocci in fifth, Giovanni Ventrini in sixth, Vittorio Liuzzi in seventh, Mario Farnbach at eighth, Thomas Lecole ninth, Vittorio Postiglione in 10th. We'd expect probably most of those pairings to stay out fairly deep into proceedings. Meanwhile, Victor Bouveng takes over from Fran Rueda. Bouveng finished third in the Scirocco Cup in Germany a couple of years ago, the 21-year-old Swede. So he will rejoin further down the order in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. So Rob Bell and Ledegaard separated by 2.5 seconds. We'll find out at the end of the next lap or so the sort of pace that we're seeing from Mikael Mack Jensen, Antonio Felix da Costa and Duncan Tappy. What I can tell you is that Tappy has got the jump on Francesco Cini through the pit stops. That's good news for the Garage Drift 19. That's one car that is cleared for them. Now the other element of strategy, of course, is that for the course of the weekend, the teams have 16 tyres available to them to use as they wish. And so we might see one or two of them keeping their powder dry for tomorrow's race, keeping a fresh set of tyres for qualifying tomorrow morning, see if they can push for pole position. Another change you just saw there, Johnny Molam, very experienced, very high quality driver, having now taken over from Ivor Dunbar. So let's see what Johnny can do. So far, all 22 cars continue to run. We had a couple through the gravel on the first lap, but otherwise nobody's encountered any sort of problems. Martin Conrad, 20th place, already flying at the wheel of the MS Racing Mercedes, down in 20th place. Rob Bell across the line. This is complete lap 20. We're approaching the halfway point of this opening race of the International GT Open season. Thank you very much for joining us today here in Estoril. An intriguing race underway. More pit stops underway. There's Francisco Guedes, takes over from Felipe Barrieroth. Popular Portuguese pairing in the GTM class. Also into the pit lane now comes Mario Farnbacher, and that is to hand over to Dominic Farnbacher. Dominic Farnbacher, very, very experienced competitor, and that is a well-drilled pit stop as well. So we'll see where the Lexus feeds back into proceedings. Meanwhile, Antonio Felix da Costa, currently the quickest man in the race at the wheel of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. He's just done a 1 minute 40.3. That car's best lap of the race, but half a second quicker than Rob Bell at the wheel of the McLaren. Bell has got another 7 minutes to play with in this stint, if he wants it. The same for Ledegaard. The driver here who must be the most frustrated, one would suggest, is Marco Ciocci, because Ciocci continues to be bottled up behind Alain Coder, but when Ciocci backs off for a lap, his following lap is always almost up to half a second quicker than the Mercedes in front of him. So down the start and finish straight, Rob Bell still leads the way in the Valve Motorsport McLaren. That lap of 1 minute 40.8. Really looking for is the pace of Antonio Felix da Costa, Mikael Mack Jensen and Duncan Tappy, because at the point they came into the pits they were somewhere adrift, 30-35 seconds or so, as da Costa does another personal best of the race, a 1 minute 40.2, so 1 minute 40.3 for Mikael Mack Jensen, a a 1 minute 40.5 for Duncan Tappy. So those cars in 12th, 13th and 14th are surely going to be worth watching for later on in terms of contention for the podiums. Meanwhile, Tom Onslow Cole runs into pit lane. Valentin Pierberg takes over from him at the wheel of the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes, as Thomas Biaggi, the reigning champion, about to take over at the wheel of the Imperiale Racing. Beginning Andrea, in fact that could be Andrea Fontana taking over from Vito Postiglione. Two cars very similarly liveried, as now that is far from ideal for Com Ledegaard, because Dominic Farnbacher has fed back onto the track directly in the middle of the fight for first and second place, whilst Rob Bell's been able to get the jump on the Lexus. Ledegaard's not been able to, so again events swinging in favour of the Balfe Motorsport team, as the Lexus splits the two McLarens. Now the Lexus is currently a lap down, but don't forget the two cars either side of him are yet to make their pit stops. And so if Dominic Farnbacher is able to at ease match the pace of the McLarens, that's potentially bad news. Meanwhile, into the pit lane now comes Albert Costa from third place to hand over to Philip Frommenweiler. Frommenweiler, who finished 8th in the Porsche Super Cup last year, opens the door as Albert Costa hops out, moves the seat insert. You can see that Frommenweiler a fair bit taller. Likewise, Hiroshi Hamaguchi takes over in the Triple F Racing Lamborghini from Vitantonio Liuzzi. Somewhat frustrating stint that for Liuzzi, I'd imagine. Caught in traffic for much of it. Thomas Biaggi now is behind the wheel of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini as well, having taken over from Giovanni Venturini. So it really is in this leading couple of cars. Dominic Farnbacher showing great pace in the Lexus here. And of those that have pitted, Farnbacher is currently the most preeminently positioned on the track. Also into the pit lane comes Jordan Witt. It's going to be Michael Meadows who will take over in the Bentley. Meadows, a multiple Carrera Cup UK champion, a very experienced sports car driver. So Michael Meadows hops in to the Jordan Racing Bentley. Dominic Farnbacher starts to apply some pressure to Rob Bell. Based on current pace, I think Rob Bell has got time for the lap he's just starting and one more before he absolutely has to come into the pit lane to hand over to Sean Balfe. The same for Com Ledegaard and Alex West, but Farnbacher almost at ease in terms of matching Bell's pace, and Rob Bell has just dropped the pace a little bit. That last lap, 1 minute 41, is also into the pits almost inevitably together are Alain Coder and Marco Ciocci. That is Marcello Hahn and Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, who will take over from the pair of them. There is Hahn, waiting to take over from Coder in the Drivex Mercedes, and likewise out jumps Marco Ciocci. Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, two-time Italian GT champion, jumps in. A bit of damage picked up early on in the race for Alain Coder, but he has driven an absolutely superb stint. So we're getting to the point where we'll really start to understand the true order of things, and it, based on pit stops so far, could be quite good this for Dominic Farnbacher, Thomas Biaggi and Philip Frommenweiler. Need to wait to see how the order all shakes out. It certainly looks likely that either Sean Balfe or Alex West will emerge from their pit stops in the lead of the races. Now Rob Bell ducks into the pit lane. Com Ledegaard is going to squeeze one extra lap out of this one. So Rob Bell accelerates, he brakes at the last possible moment to get down to the 60 km/h pit lane speed limit, which will feel terribly slow for Bell as he rolls down the pit lane. It will feel plenty fast enough for the mechanics in the Balfe Motorsport pits area. Also in, well, out of shot is Com Ledegaard. Yeah, there you see Ledegaard in the background, hand over to Alex West. So the last two cars to make their pit stops cycling through, and this is now where it becomes a race in the pits. There's no pit handicap being applied. So if either the Garage 59 team or the Balfe Motorsport team fail to complete the service within the 70 seconds allotted, there'll be a chance for one of the others to jump through. Now here is Philip Frommenweiler, who is in the car that was in third place before the pit cycle started. So essentially, Frommenweiler currently racing two cars that are static in the pit lane. So the Emil Frey Racing Lexus climbing up through the chicane. The commentary position here unfortunately doesn't afford us a view of pit exit, so I'm going on my timing screen to tell me when Sean Balfe or Alex West leave the pit lane. And at the moment, neither of them are showing as pit out. Oh, and there's been a switch in the pits. West in the Garage 59 McLaren has got the jump on Sean Balfe in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. And so the order has switched. And they are both going to emerge clear of Philip Frommenweiler, but we should now be in for an absolutely great scrap through the closing stage of the race. As Sean Balfe, he's got a couple of seconds to try and gain on Alex West. He's then got to try and pick his way past him as well. So post pit stops, the order is West, Balfe, Frommenweiler. Then it's Thomas Biaggi in fourth. Dominic Farnbacher is in fifth. Marcello Hahn in sixth place as the pit window about has come to a close. Pier Giuseppe Perezzini is seventh. Andrea Fontana is eighth. Roshi Hamaguchi in ninth. Valentin Pierreberg in 10th. Antonio Felix da Costa 11th. Duncan Tappy in 12th. Mikael Mack Jensen in 13th, Victor Bouveng in 14th, Francesco Cini in 15th. So here's the race leader, Alexander West. Took one win last year, as we said. Great defensive drive in Monza. Big smile and thumbs up from Leathergart. The Garage 59 team doing exactly what they needed to do. West a little bit tentative on this outlap. He's got Jose Francisco Guedes in one of the Teo Marti Motorsport BMWs to the lap on, and Guedes is busy doing battling with one of the Mercedes. I think that is Luis Silva. Indeed it is. And so as the BMW looks to make the move on Silva, there you see West behind. The last thing he wants is a couple of cars dicing in front of him. West's advantage over Sean Balfe, 3.1 seconds. But now the Garage 59 McLaren of Alex West, he's got to try and pick his way past this gaggle of cars. Philip Frommenweiler a further 5 seconds back from Sean Balfe. Frommenweiler, his last lap of 1 minute 40.2. So that's the one that I think West and Balfe need to worry about. Everybody else actually quite some way adrift just at the moment. But the way the second half of these races often unfolds is that everything can start to close up just a little bit. So the next target for Alex West is Jose Francisco Guedes, Teo Marti Motorsport BMW. That is, I think, there is Dominic Farnbacher. And so that would suggest it's Thomas Biaggi immediately in front of him. This is the fight for 4th and 5th position. And Farnbacher, last time around, a whole second quicker than Thomas Biaggi in the Lamborghini Huracan. And certainly, on fresh tyres, the Lexuses are both very, very rapid. The question is going to be whether or not they can make the Michelin rubber last as well as the slightly more nimble McLarens and possibly the more nimble Lamborghini through to the checkered flag. Still a lot of racing to go, just shy of half an hour or so. So Rob Bell and Com Leathergart debriefing their stint, as on that course that last lap, Sean Balfe a second quicker than Alexander West, as West was in amongst the traffic. So it's 2.2 seconds from first to second. The question, of course, being whether or not Sean Balfe can retain that rate of capture as he now gets onto terms with Guedes in the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW. Guedes certainly not in a hurry to move aside for Sean Balfe through turn 3. Meanwhile, out of the first corner, Thomas Biaggi and Dominic Farnbacher. Farnbacher 6/10 quicker than Biaggi last time around. Hiroshi Hamaguchi also in the triple left landing in your next place, showing that car's potentially in clear air. I mean, just at the 1:40.3. Antonio Felix da Costa, by the way, up into 10th place now in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW, 43.8 seconds adrift of the lead of the race. That's got to terms with Andrea Fontana. It's Valentin Pierberg who is slipping down the order. He is a little bit slower than many of the leading groups, so he is losing some ground. Fight for 4th and 5th closing up a little bit. Likewise, Marcello Hahn has now got Pier Giuseppe Perezzini getting onto terms with his tail. Hahn in 6th place, Perezzini in 7th. The GTM class currently being led by Nono Figueiredo from Martin Conrad, Jose Francisco Guedes. It's Pro-Am combinations that lead the race overall in 1st and 2nd place, in the first Pro driver combination. Philip Frommenweiler and Albert Costa in 3rd place. Well, the race clock on your screen has actually stopped ticking. I can tell you there's 23 minutes left in the race, not 28:42 as being shown. Now here is Sean Balfe. Where is Alex West? There he is. So Balfe, released into some clear air, has now immediately gone to terms with Alex West. I just wonder whether the Swedish driver has made a slight error, because Balfe was half a second back on him last time round. Meanwhile, Philip Frommenweiler's made the move on Thomas Biaggi. So Dominic Farnbacher has made the move on Thomas Biaggi. So Farnbacher goes 4th, Biaggi slips to 5th. Now here is a look at the moment for West, who just ploughs straight on at turn 1. Actually was very fortunate to keep that car out of the gravel trap, so no wonder Sean Balfe is right with him. Now that Balfe is there anything you can do about overhauling West? These two cars have really been flying in tandem throughout the duration of the race, and it continues to be the case. There's 22 minutes to run. And the Balfe Motorsport car, having led all the way to the pit stops, then jumped through the stops by the Garage 59 team and Alex West, and now it is going to be hard work for West. Over 20 minutes to defend from Sean Balfe. And look in the background there, you see Philip Frommenweiler in the Lexus closing up very quickly onto both of them. I thought Lexus was going to be the concern. Indeed it is. Frommenweiler half a second quicker last time round, as a change once more in the fight for 4th. Thomas Biaggi back up ahead of Dominic Farnbacher, so Biaggi goes to 4th once more. Farnbacher slips to 5th. This battle taking place 18 seconds back from the race leaders, and they're really slowing themselves down as well. So here is the leading trio, and they're almost running as one. It's West in the black and orange Garage 59 McLaren. 2nd place, Sean Balfe, the red and white Balfe Motorsport McLaren. Then you see the Emil Frey Racing Lexus of Philip Frommenweiler and Albert Costa in 3rd place. That is the white and black Lexus. 1st, 2nd and 3rd almost running as one. They've got 18 seconds or so to play with over the fight for 4th, which is equally intense. We saw at Monza last year that Alex West can soak up this pressure pretty well, and Philip Frommenweiler, having really closed up in the Lexus quite quickly, this gaggle of cars has now got the challenge of whether or not he can actually pick his way past. Because of course, if Sean Balfe holds him off for several laps, it will just give Alex West the chance to build up a little bit of a buffer, and that's more or less exactly what's happened over the course of the last lap as they head through the Parabolica. 20 minutes remain in the race, exactly as they start lap 30. Balfe just has a little bit of a weave down the start finish straight. Make sure there's no way through on that occasion for Philip Frommenweiler. Before they duck out of turn 1, down through turn 2. The road just starts to fall away from them a little bit before they reach the bottom of the hill at turn 3. Then climb steeply uphill into the left-hander at turn 4. Here, meanwhile, is Giuseppe Perezzini to the inside of Marcello Hahn, and that's a move that's been coming really through the whole race as the Ferrari tags the Mercedes. Hiroshi Hamaguchi also left with nowhere to go in the Lamborghini. And that has proved to be good news for Antonio Felix da Costa, who now is up into 9th place. Philip Fromenweiler, meanwhile, in the Lexus, hunts in pursuit of Sean Balfe, the fight for 2nd and 3rd. A little bit of a bump over the curves for the Lexus as they climb through this tight, steep chicane. As they then reach the tabletop, they can start to unwind the throttle. West leads, yet to be challenged by either Balfe or Fromenweiler for that lead. He's only really in the clutches of both of them because that mistake at turn 1 a couple of laps ago, but now it needs to be an error-free run through to the checkered flag. Lap 30 is concluded towards turn 1. Fromenweiler just ducks out of the toe behind Sean Balfe, has a look to the inside, nothing doing there. Balfe, not surprisingly, gains a little bit of ground on West through turn 1. And on that last lap of this group, in fact, it was Balfe who was the quickest. Suddenly Sean Balfe getting onto terms with West once more. So they run through turn 4. So on this back straight where Philip Fromenweiler in the Lexus gets the opportunity just to open up the throttle, start to pressurise the McLaren. This group of cars there, 20 seconds up the road now from Dominic Farnbacher, who has dispensed with Thomas Biaggi in the fight for 4th and 5th. 6th, Hiroshi Hamaguchi. 7th, Antonio Felix da Costa. 8th, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. 9th, Duncan Tappi. Andrea Fontana completes the top 10. But realistically, the podium is going to be sorted out between these 3 cars. As again, West just now having to start to take some slightly more defensive lines to keep Sean Balfe behind him. And the real risk here for Sean Balfe is that if he goes to remove Alex West, it opens the door to Philip Fromenweiler. If West over-defends, he could potentially lose to both Balfe and Fromenweiler. The challenge, however, for Philip Fromenweiler is that he just can't get sucked in and mesmerised by what the cars in front are doing. But now the Lexus has a good run on the McLaren down the start and finish straight. This is the closest that Fromenweiler has been for a while. The Swiss driver might fancy his chances as he looks inside the McLaren into the first corner. Sean Balfe darts across, just turns in a little bit earlier, makes sure there's no way through for the Lexus. And this is the beauty of multi-mark GT racing, the balance of performance. The McLaren, such an agile car through the slow and mid-speed corners. The Lexus, better suited maybe to the straights and the faster turns. And it means that across the lap here at Estoril, it really does start to balance itself out. There's Albert Costa on the Emil Frey Racing pit wall, watching this battle unfold. Just shy of 16 minutes left to run. This first race of the International GT Open season really coming together very, very nicely in the latter stages. As the race leaders head downhill towards turn 7. Sean Balfe closing up a little bit under braking behind Alex West. They then punch their way through turn 8 into heavy braking at turn 9. Meanwhile, Antonio Felix da Costa, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini and Duncan Tappi. This is the fight for 7th, 8th and 9th place. We've got Mikel Mack as well, just behind them. They are only 6 seconds adrift of Hiroshi Hamaguchi. So potentially a little bit more ground to be gained here as the race leaders head out of the Parabolica again. Fromenweiler in the Lexus takes advantage of the momentum through the Parabolica, gets a good run on Sean Balfe as they head towards turn 1. Fromenweiler looks to the inside. He's not going to be close enough to challenge on the brakes, as he? No, he's not. And Sean Balfe takes another bite out of Alex West's lead as they head through the first turn. Down towards turn 2. So far, West has soaked up about 8 minutes of pressure from Balfe. He's soaked up 6 minutes of pressure from this group running as a trio, but he's got another quarter of an hour to go means, in reality, that it's going to be 7 or 8 laps thereabouts for West. Stromweiler in the Lexus looks for any sort of opening to oppose the McLarens. Again, Balfe just picks up the throttle, but Costa watches on from the pit wall. There's not really an awful lot he can say to advise Philip Frommenweiler, other than just for the Swiss driver to see how events in front of him unfold. Sean Balfe just forces a very slightly defensive line from West into the chicane. They climb up onto the tabletop. The clock continues to tick downwards. 13.5 minutes now. West, Balfe and Frommenweiler, the fight for the win in the opening round of the 2017 International GT Open. They come to the end of the 33rd lap of the race. Again, Frommenweiler has a super run on Sean Balfe, but he's a car length adrift as they head down, start and finish straight. The pit board goes out, advises Balfe that he's in second place, that might become third because Frommenweiler looks to the inside. But the Lexus can't quite draw alongside by the point at which Balfe turns across, so it means that Frommenweiler has to duck out of the move. But as Balfe is forced to defend, it buys Alex West a little bit of breathing space, but West makes a slight mistake into turn 3, or so it appeared. Sean Balfe trying to capitalise also makes a slight error. And then it shuffles through to Frommenweiler, who was looking every which way to try and pick his way past the McLaren. And Balfe couldn't do it. So out of turn 4 they come, down the back straight, picking up the throttle. And so far, this 34th lap has been advantage West. He's got a little bit of a buffer over Balfe. Then the same gap from Balfe to Frommenweiler. It's another section of the circuit they're approaching now that really plays into the hands of the McLarens, swooping downhill through turn 7, then into the tight turn 9 and 10 chicane before the road opens up again, and it's back to the section of the circuit that suits the Lexus a little bit more. So Balfe closes up onto West through the chicane. Pace of Alex West last time around was a 1 minute 41.6, which was exactly the same pace as Dominic Farnbacher in 4th. So as the battle between this leading trio intensifies, it's not allowing any of those behind to particularly close up, but they are possibly going to be in and amongst a little bit of traffic before too long, so that's going to be worth keeping on as well. Balfe pursues West into turn 1. You get the feeling that Sean Balfe can get himself into a little bit of clear air, that he might possibly be able to pull clear of Alex West. But of course, it's quite one thing to catch the car in front, it's another to find your way past. And with each lap that goes by, it gets harder and harder for Sean Balfe to catch Alex West by surprise. Likewise, the moment has certainly passed for Philip Frommenweiler, the Swiss driver, having cruised up to the leading duo, unable to cruise past, and now Balfe knows exactly where he needs to defend, where he's also free to attack. So behind this group, it's Dominic Farnbacher 4th, Thomas Biaggi is 5th, Hiroshi Hamaguchi is 6th, Antonio Felix da Costa 7th, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini in 8th, Duncan Tappi 9th, Mikel Mack 10th, Andrea Fontana 11th, Valentin Pierberg in 12th, Victor Bouveng 13th, Marcello Hahn 14th, 15th Michael Meadows, 16th in the GTM class Nono Figueiredo. It says Eduardo Liberati in 17th, Martin Conrad 18th, Jose Francisco Guedes 19th, Johnny Molam in 20th, Luis Silva in 21st, and then 22nd within the wars somewhat, Francesco Cini. So out of the final turn, and this time Frommenweiler appreciably close to Sean Balfe, and this is the best opportunity the Lexus has had so far. If Frommenweiler can draw alongside by turn 1, he's going to go through. Depends just how bold he can be on the brakes. Frommenweiler brakes deep, he's got the line, and eases through into second place, and now immediately sets his sights on pursuing Alex West. That's unfortunate. Oh, and West goes off. So Alex West, long-time race leader, slides off at turn 2 just as the Lexus closed onto his tail. and suddenly it's all changed at the front. Weiler leads, Bauth second, West into third. And such frustration for Sean Bauth, almost one more corner and he would have taken the lead of the race. But now, the question with 9 minutes to go is how much life is left in the tyres of the Lexus, because we saw towards the end of the first stint that both the Lexuses were starting to struggle a little bit. But for Philip Weiler, he's not been running at his true pace for a couple of laps. Here's another look at the move then. Weiler to the inside of Sean Bauth. That was fairly straightforward. He got the run earlier on. Celebration time for Albert Costa. But then the celebration really kicked on a couple of moments later as West just slithered off the road, again at quite high speed, kept his foot in, rejoined, losing far less ground than he ought to have done. So frustration for the Garage 59 team. As from Weiler comes the end of the 36th lap of the race. He leads the way, but there is some traffic up the road ahead. So over the line for the race leader, Philip Weiler, second clear of Sean Bauth. Alex West in third. It's going to be a reasonably comfortable third for Alex West, unless his pace complete deserts him. Dominic Farnbacker a little bit too far adrift to cause him any concern. And Weiler immediately elevating his pace to 1 minute 41.2. Sean Bauth trying to stay with him. Emil Frey Lexus team making their International GT Open debut. And the Lexus, its progress hotly anticipated, is looking as if it may score a victory on its International GT Open debut. 7 minutes and 20 to go. Weiler therefore has still got to navigate another 4 or so laps of the track. Now here is Dominic Farnbacker. Farnbacker 15 seconds back from this leading gaggle of cars. He has got Jose Francisco Guedes to contend with. Reigning champion Thomas Biaggi in 5th. Now for Biaggi, last year the route to the championship was one of consistency. 8 podiums, but just 1 victory for Biaggi. So 5th place in such a strong field isn't necessarily going to be a huge concern for him. 6th at the moment is Hiroshi Hamaguchi. 7th Antonio Felix da Costa. 8th Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. 9th Duncan Tappi. And 10th Michael Mack. There was Mario Farnbacker watching the progress of Dominic. Uses every inch of the road, possibly a little bit more, coming out of the Parabolica, accelerating through across the line for Farnbacker. That last lap, a 1 minute 41.8 versus 1 minute 42.7 from Alex West, so he gets a second closer to West. Thomas Biaggi fractionally quicker than Farnbacker last time round as well, as here is the Perezzini, Tappi and Mack battle, 8th, 9th and 10th. We've lost contact a little bit with Antonio Felix da Costa. So Michael Mack looks to try and close up onto terms with Duncan Tappi. Now these are all cars that we're going to really watch for in qualifying for tomorrow's race. Da Costa, Tappi and Mack will potentially be contenders to take pole position. So the fight for 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th winds uphill through turn 4 and along this back stretch as Tappi's got a reasonably good run here on Perezzini, and Duncan Tappi might fancy his chances at moving ahead of Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. Looks to draw alongside the Italian and the Ferrari, tries to force the error from Perezzini, who does run a little bit offline at turn 4, but not a car's width offline, so there's no space for Duncan Tappi to try and force his way past. The same as they run downhill as well. So one of the challenges of this Estoril circuit, the corners come so in succession so quickly. You need to plot any sort of overtaking move several corners in advance. 4.5 minutes to go. The race leaders have already been and gone. From and Weiler 2.4 seconds clear of Sean Balfe, who's now in turn almost 4 seconds clear of Alex West. Oh, and Tappy just being pressurised by Mack as they came through the parabolica, and suddenly the boot on the underfoot as Mikael Mack makes the move on the Garage 59 McLaren, the Duncan Tappy. Or does he? It's going to be a drag race towards turn one. Depends who's feeling boldest on the brakes. They're both feeling pretty lively, but Mikael Mack able to sneak his way past. So the Spirit of Race Ferrari, Mikael Mack, released to try and see what he can do about Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. Climbing uphill into turn 4. And again, we've not really seen the true pace, I don't think, of Mikael Mack today or Duncan Tappy. They've both been in traffic throughout the bulk of the stint. As you can see, Duncan Tappy's also bid farewell to some bodywork at some point during the race, which probably means that the Garage 59 McLaren is just a little bit a step back, certainly in terms of the handling they'd like it to be offering. Tappy trying to close up and mount a challenge on Mikael Mack, but he can't do it through turn 7. Then they swing through 8 into the chicane at turns 9 and 10, climbing steeply uphill. Mack trying to chase Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. And this is the parabolica where Mikael Mack was so good a lap ago. So the question is going to be whether or not Mack can do it this time around on Pier Giuseppe Perezzini. The two Ferraris, stablemates, near enough identical. Perezzini's got enough underneath him. Across the line they go. Much to contemplate and watch for on the AF Course pit wall, following the progress of the cars into turn 1. Just 2 minutes left on the clock. So the question is then, at what point will Philip Frommerweiler cross the start and finish line? It's not within the next 20 seconds, then we will be heading in to the last lap of the race. This is the best battle at the sharp end of the field. A little bit of traffic as well. It's Luis Silva who Perezzini is going to have to deal with. And again, that offers a glimmer of hope for Mikael Mack. Perezzini flashing his headlights at Luis Silva. Silva, having absolutely none of it, moves across into the corner, slithers out a little bit wide. It's kind of getting to that stage of the race. Cars are feeling tired, drivers maybe a little bit weary. Is Perezzini able to navigate the sporting new Mercedes? The same can't be said for Mikael Mack, and that possibly removes the opportunity for Mack. It certainly does for Duncan Tappy, as now flashing his headlights, looking to the inside of Andrea Fontana is Philip Frommerweiler, and Frommerweiler into the last lap of the race. The clock is going to have ticked down to 0, but the next time that the Emil Frey Racing Lexus crosses the line, it's been a beautifully judged race, this, the all-pro lineup of Frommerweiler and Albert Costa, making their International GT Open debut and making it fairly spectacularly. Sean Balfe and Rob Bell in second place, Alex West and Com Ledegar in third. Balfe and Bell set for Pro-Am class honours, with Nono Figueiredo and Marcio Basso for the AM class win. But Philip Frommerweiler and Albert Costa, just half a lap to go. Costa couldn't quite stay with the McLarens in the early stages, but in the second half of the race, Frommerweiler able to push, took advantage of that moment for Alex West, and thereafter the Lexus has been released. He's built a buffer in the closing stages. The clock has ticked to 0. There is just one corner to go for Philip Frommerweiler. The Emil Frey Racing team are ready to celebrate as the Lexus comes through the final turn. The checkered flag is about to go out, and when it does, it will greet Philip Frommerweiler and Albert Costa, who win the opening race of the 2017 International GT Open season. And you can see what it means for them on the pit wall. Second place to Sean Balfe and Rob Bell. They win the Pro-Am class from Alex West and Com Ledegar who complete the overall race rostrum. Delight on various pit walls. Dominic and Mario Farnbacher take 4th from Thomas Biaggi and Giovanni Venturini, with Hiroshi Hamaguchi and Vitantonio Liuzzi 6th place in the Triple F Racing Lamborghini. But you can see what the win means for Albert Costa. He's been out of racing for a little while. Always one of those drivers with a lot more talent than budget available. But he has claimed victory alongside Philip Frommerweiler in the opening race of the International GT Open season. Really lovely battle between the two McLarens and the Lexus. Eventually the pressure paid, and then Frommerweiler also able to take advantage of the opportunity to move clear of Sean Balfe. Just make sure he picks up as many marbles as possible for the tyres on his tour back to the pits, as the marshals come trackside to applaud the winners. It's the last few cars still taking the checker flag. I think Philip Frommerweiler certainly enjoyed that. So look at the classification then. Costa and Frommerweiler taking the win, 3.6 seconds clear of Sean Balfe and Rob Bell, with Alex West and Com Ledegaard completing the outright race podium. Rob Bell setting fastest lap earlier on in the race. The Farnbachers in 4th from Thomas Biaggi and Giovanni Venturini in 5th. Then Hiroshi Hamaguchi and Vitantonio Liuzzi in 6th. Lorenzo Beirao de Viega and Antonio Felix da Costa into 7th, ahead of Miguel Ramos and Mikel Mack in 8th. Pier Giuseppe and Perezzini and Marco Ciocci in 9th, with Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy completing the top 10. Just ahead of Victor Boudin and Fran Rueda in 11th. Marcio Basso and Nono Figueiredo taking the GTM class win in 12th, ahead of Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow-Cole. Then it was Alain Coder who had a superb start to the race, and Marcello Hahn in 14th. The only car that was really in the wars today was the Solaris Aston Martin of Sini and Calamia. So in terms of the championship, of course, it's early stages, but those are the current scores on the doors. Costa and Frommerweiler taking an early lead, but a lot of racing to go. This just the first of 14 races for the International GT Open season. And of course, once we get into tomorrow's action, that is where the pit handicaps and the like are going to start to come into play as well. And therefore, we can expect to see a very different complexion to the action tomorrow. But for now, celebration time for Albert Costa, Philip Frommerweiler. The teammates embrace and celebrate in Parc Fermé. Thumbs up all around. Likewise, Rob Bell offers his congratulations to Sean Balfe. That was a tough stint for Balfe. Bell doing a great job from pole position. The Balfe Motorsport team runners-up last year in the championship, starting the season very strongly. Likewise, Com Ledegaard offering his congratulations to Alex West. West driving very well under sustained pressure to bring the car home onto the podium. So big smiles in Parc Fermé from all of our race winners. And we'll be able to hear from Costa and Frommerweiler in a few moments' time, once they've disentangled themselves from helmets and hands devices.
Albert, Costa, Philip Fromenville, really a fantastic debut for the Lexus.
Yeah, I mean, we were not expecting that, to be honest. We started the car this Monday. We were quite quick, but as I said, no, we didn't expect that, and we win the race. Thanks to all the team, especially to him for the amazing thing he did. I have no words, you know. Thank you for everybody who have believed with me until here.
Yeah, Philip, in the second part of the race, you were perfect. The car seemed perfect. What can the Lexus do this year?
Yeah, let's see. I really don't know. I mean, it is a really successful weekend for us. So first win for the brand new car. So we are looking forward. I think now we enjoy the moment with everybody involved. So we have a great team and want to say thank you to them. So yeah, but now I think we just enjoy the moment and let's see what we're going to do this year.
Yeah, that's right. Enjoy the moment. It's podium time.
Led away from pole position, although Albert Costa anticipated to the start very nicely as well, with Con Ledegaard trying to fight his way up into second place as the pack fought their way through the first turn. It's remarkably clean in the early stage of the race, with Fran Rueda, one of the only drivers to have any sort of a moment in the early running, as at the front of the pack Rob Bell and Con Ledegaard were able to ease away from Albert Costa behind. There was some great racing, not least between Mario Farnbacher and Tom Onslow Cole. A rich and varied field opens itself up to some very close dicing. The Western Racing Lamborghini was one of several cars to get in amongst the wars, in amongst the thick of the action. Post pit stops, it was Alex West who was leading the way from Sean Balfe and Philippe Fromenville when it all got very close. The Swiss driver able to make the move on Balfe for second place into turn one, but as they headed towards turn two, West slithered wide, and that promoted Fromenville and Costa in the Lexus to the lead of the race. Thereafter, Fromenville was able to pull clear of Sean Balfe, so it was a debut victory for Albert Costa and Philippe Fromenville in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus second place, and Pro-Am win for Sean Balfe and Rob Bell in the Balfe McLaren from the Garage 59 McLaren of Alex West and Com Ledegaard, with Nono Figueiredo and Marcio Basso claiming GTM honours. Big smiles, not unsurprisingly, behind the podium, getting ready for the first trip to the rostrum of the year. As the drivers applaud down to the podium, Alex West and Com Ledegaard in third, runners-up Sean Balfe and Rob Bell. And race winners Philippe Fromenville and Albert Costa in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus. National anthems completed, time to move on to the presentation of the trophies. And first of all, third place trophies for West and Ledegaard. Runners up, Bell and Balfe, and of course they've got to do it all over again tomorrow, because we've got qualifying first thing tomorrow morning ahead of a 60-minute race, and our coverage for that starts just after 1 o'clock local time tomorrow. So if you're watching in Europe, then you need to add an hour. As Costa and Fromenville celebrate on the top step of the podium in Estoril, the debut win in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus, and they can save the moment. It was a beautifully judged race, really, by all of our trio on the rostrum. They were the preeminent cars throughout the whole 70 minutes, and they hoist the trophies aloft to celebrate success in the first race of the GT Open season. Now it's time to make merry with the bubbly, and after those agreements you could just hear in the background audio about no bubbly, clearly that has been forgotten. So a dry cleaner will need to be sourced somewhere in the Estoril area ahead of tomorrow's action. From Avila and Costa celebrating. They have claimed the first win of the 2017 season, as we turn our attention now towards the Pro-Am rostrum, which will also got the drivers for the GT-Am rostrum as well. Lots of different classes, all very well represented here in Estoril this weekend. So first of all, third place in the Pro-Am class in the Triple F Lamborghini, Hiroshi Hamaguchi and Vitantonio Liuzzi. It's surely a combination that we're going to see on the outright race podium throughout the course of the season. Some great pace, both of them when they're able to get some clear air. Runners up were West and Ledegar, and then class winners Sean Balfe and Rob Bell. So on to the Pro-Am trophy presentation, as we've managed to find Alex West and Com Ledegar, third place for Liuzzi and Hamaguchi. Runners up for Com Ledegar and Alex West. And our Pro-Am class winners, runners up in the race overall, Sean Balfe and Rob Bell for Balfe Motorsports celebrate on the top step of the podium in Estoril. And again, make merry with the bubbly. So thank you for joining us today here in Estoril. A great way to open the International GT Open season. From myself, Ben Evans, it's goodbye, and we'll see you tomorrow as we get ready for the continuation of the 2017 campaign. Now turn our attention to the GT-Am podium, and in third place it was Felipe Barrieros and Jose Francisco Guedes. Second place we had the MS racing car of Alexander Hrakwa and Martin Conrad, and then our GT-Am winners Nono Figueiredo and Marcio Basso in the sporting new Mercedes. So national anthem in honour of Basso and Figueiredo. And the GTM podium, always a great opportunity to reward and reflect and celebrate the amateur driver pairings, and again some great battling through the GTM class as Guedes and Barrieroth celebrating a home rostrum ahead of Requena and Conrad, particularly Martin Conrad going very well at the wheel of the MS Racing Mercedes, but sport a new pairing of Figueiredo and Basso have been the class of the GTM combinations all afternoon, and therefore they celebrate with the first class victory of the 2017 season. And we'll enjoy battle recommencing again tomorrow.
Vamos lá, sempre com tudo para avançarmos então para a próxima corrida.